everybody wants to assign a single variable as the only thing that can increase stress. That only works on novice linear progression. What is the variable that changes in novice linear progression? It's only intensity. Intensity goes up every session. After that, it starts to get a little tiny bit more complicated. You're listening to Barbell Logic, brought to you by Barbell Logic Online Coaching, where each week we take a systematic walk through strength training and the refining power of voluntary hardship.
Welcome to the Barbell Logic podcast. I'm Scott Hambrick. That is Matt Reynolds. And today we're going to talk about troubleshooting for programming. All we have done is talk about programming for the last many shows.
And sometimes we argue and disagree, and sometimes it's because we don't know what the hell we're doing. I don't know. It's one of those deals. I think that this stuff has made us really think about why we do what we do.
Yep.
And we test it on our many clients, and we continue to tighten up our theory about it all. So troubleshooting is important because we get asked a lot of questions like, when would you increase intensity and decrease volume? And when would you increase volume and decrease intensity? When would you make changes to frequency? What about sets and reps? When would you go from 5s to 3s or something else? And so I think it all depends on where you get stuck.
Yeah, we always advocate for these minimum effective dose changes, but the truth of it is, before you make one of those changes, you need to know what is prompting the change, what the problem is. We only make a change when something doesn't work.
Right.
So we need to figure out why it doesn't work before we can propose a change. And to tell you the truth, we don't always know why it didn't work.
Sure. Matter of fact, we probably never actually truly know why.
No.
We could just have better guesses and worse guesses.
Yeah.
We have these theories as to why they don't work. And sometimes that very much depends on your client and how open and honest and transparent they are with you about their training, about their eating, about their stress outside of the gym.
Charity and I were just talking while you were in the bathroom. Matt's always in the bathroom.
Waterboarding my butt.
We were talking about one of her clients. She's like, well, what am I going to do about this? This guy keeps doing this other thing. I'm like, what? She's like, what am I going to do about it? And I said, hey, there's nothing you can do about it. The guy doesn't even try. He's going through the motions.
Yeah.
Like she's got this long-term client that she and I both know. We've both coached him in person, and he doesn't even try. He's got plenty of money. He's an older guy. He just doesn't. He's just going through the motions. Huh?
I said, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So what do you do with that guy? Anything you do is a guess. It's very, very difficult. And then I have other clients who I know give it their all every single time. And even then, I don't know why something's not working. Even then, sometimes I don't know why that line of programming thought has not continued to work.
Sure.
But we know that there are some clues as to why programming is not working. And by the way, any programming eventually won't work.
Yep.
So let's talk about a few of the things that we can see that would lead us to believe, what would let us know that the programming wasn't working, and let's talk about what we can deduce from these things.
Right.
Well, one of the ways we know programming isn't working is because people aren't able to do the next session.
Right.
At end of LP, you're like, 3 sets of 5 at 300 pounds is your squat, sir. And you type it in, and they go and they do it, and they upload their videos, and they go. There's a couple of ways they can miss this. The way they miss it, the way older people miss it, most of the time, is 5, 3, 1. They get 5 reps, then 3, and then one of them staples them to the floor.
Yeah. Yeah, or they don't even get one. Like it didn't move.
Yep.
You're like, what?
Well, yep.
How's that possible?
What's going on, Matt?
With the old person?
Well, so if you see a guy, and he does 5 and the bar speed ain't too bad, and then he does 3, and then he just almost dies to get 1 for his last set, okay, we've got some clues here.
Sure.
We can watch the video. We're in person. We can see him in person, what do we think happened? What do we think the problem is? Well, the problem is he wasn't able to do 3 sets of 5. What are some of the causes? Well, this is what RIP's 3 questions are about. Are you resting? Are you eating?
Right.
Are you taking reasonable weight jumps? And if the answer to all those things are yes, well, now what?
Right. Well, so I have I see this all. What about I actually think it's a similar problem is the person who will sometimes hit 3 on the first set and then hit 5 on the next 2 sets.
Well,
if somebody goes 5-3-0 or 5-3-1 or 3-5-5, the next 4th question I'm going to ask after I've asked the first 3 questions is, do we have a between the ears problem?
Right.
Do we have a problem in your head that has what?
Now wait a minute. You think there's do you think there's more of a between the ears problem if they do 5-3-1 than if they do 3-5-5?
No. So if they go 3-5-5, it's often a form error issue on the first set.
Okay.
So that would be, but often, and then if somebody goes 5-3-1 or 5-3-0, that's a between the ears problem.
Okay.
That probably
could be.
Now, if it's somebody that you train for a long time and they don't have a between the ears problem, it's a fatigue buildup problem, right? Like they can't recover enough to do that amount of work, at least not with that number of sets and reps. So you have to change the amount of work or the set and rep scheme that occurs. Sometimes you can do the same work, right? Like on a bench press and press, one of the first changes I'll make when somebody starts missing reps on their 3 sets of 5 of bench press and press is I just flip it to 5 sets of 3. And it's the same total amount of work. It's the same volume. It's the same frequency, but it lets me keep going up in intensity. What do you do with your old guys that squat and they hit 5 and then 3 and then a single? What do you do with them?
Well, I typically just say, you know what, you're right, and we'll just reduce the number of sets they do on that day for a time.
Sure. So if they go 5-3-1, that's 9 reps.
Yep.
So what I often will do is I'll have them go 3 sets of 3.
Yeah, I really don't like taking dudes to triples that early in the game.
Well, I don't know how early in the game it is. We haven't talked about that.
Well, let's say that it's it's just the end of LP. Let's just say.
Okay. Then I'm always going to keep them on 5s for as long as
I wouldn't want to reduce them to triples because if they're going 5-3-1, it's it's work capacity related, it's recovery capacity related. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on.
My general go-to is if they can hit all 5 reps on the first set, and there's any drop off afterwards, then I'm going to keep them at a top set of 5 with some back off sets.
Yeah,
that would be the place I would almost always go if they can hit 5 on their first set.
Yep, that's what I would do.
Then we're going to keep driving up that set of 5 on the first set, and the amount of back off is going to depend on the demographic.
Yep.
Right. So an older female, your mom,
not backing off much, man.
You're not backing off much. If it's me, I might back off 25-30%.
Yeah.
So you've got a pretty big variation there in how much you back.
That's not very brilliant of us, is it? Like if the guy goes 5-3-2, I mean, he already did back offs. We're just giving him permission to go ahead and do it.
Yeah, we're just programming that.
Yeah, so it's not. There's nothing brilliant about that.
The alternative is what a lot of people have done is if he goes 5-3-2. Then what most coaches will do, they'll go, we'll try it again next time and see if we can go 3 sets of 5, or let's just back off the weight by 10% and run up again. Mm-hmm. And I think both are I think either could potentially work, but I don't think that either are optimal probably.
If you back off the weight and it goes back up and you surpass those numbers, then it was probably a recovery issue and he was tired.
Then it worked.
And a midweek deload would have done the same.
Yep.
Would have done the same without having to do the entire, back off and then run up.
And sometimes I'll repeat the session if I have a talk with the client and the client tells me, I went 5-3-2, but I vomited twice yesterday. I hadn't had anything to eat since 11 a.m. I fought with my wife. Something happened. I didn't sleep last night.
I was in the car
I
6
go,
hours.
Okay, then there are some external stressors that are occurring.
Yep.
Let's try it one more time. And if they try the same workout one more time, and then they do the same thing and miss reps, then we got to make a change.
And by the way, I'm super happy with the whole darn thing. The guy got a 5-rep PR.
Right.
It's fine. There's
He
nothing.
still was able to put more weight on the bar for 5 reps than he ever had.
Yep.
And that's the goal, especially coming out of LP, is just to continue to make sure that every week or a couple times a week, or at best even 3 times a week, but that we're adding weight to the bar.
And you said something earlier that I should have made a caveat about, was there weren't any form errors. If somebody misses reps and you see that they just misgrooved a squat, well, they're going to, if you misgroove a 355 squat, you're probably not going to hit it. You're not going to make that rep. So
I see this most often on the press, by the way.
Yep.
I think more often I see people have this weird sort of like, rather than a drop off on press reps, sometimes they hit their least number of press reps on the first set. And as it goes on, they get better at it. And it's because they find the groove on the press.
Yeah.
Listen, you push that bar forward and it's 3 inches in front of your forehead, it's coming back down. And if that happens on rep 2, you often can rack it, take a few minutes, and hit a set of 5 afterwards if you can actually hit that groove better. So you actually seem to be able to complete a misgrooved squat rep easier than you can complete a misgrooved press rep.
Yeah, some people can. Yeah. So, I bet me and Sims can't. If you see a guy come in on Friday towards the end of LP, and he squats 3-3-2, 4-3-2, something like that.
Yep.
I tend to think, and nothing's misgrooved. It's not psychological. I tend to think that this person doesn't have enough stress. So I normally see this in large people, young people.
Okay. They're squatting 3 times a week.
They're squatting 3 times a week.
But they're not able to hit enough reps on the first set. They don't hit their set of 5 on set 1.
Yeah, and they typically won't fail like this unless they already have the midweek deload. So they squat 385 for 3 sets of 5 on Monday. They've got something light in the midweek, 315 maybe.
Right.
And then they come in to get 390 on Friday and they go 3-3 double or something like that.
Okay.
I don't think there's enough work.
Boy, how do you know?
But I don't know.
Why do you think?
Well, we've already given him the midweek deload, so we should have given him some time for the fatigue to dissipate.
Yeah.
And on Monday, he squatted 385, which is only 5 pounds more than the previous Friday, which was 380.
Right, so he was able to complete the 380 for 3 sets of 5.
Yep, on Friday.
He was able to complete the 385 for 3 sets of 5, had his back off day on Wednesday, and then came in and went like 4-3-2.
Right. No form issues. I mean, this guy's savage anyway. He's already at 385 in LP.
Okay.
I think there's not enough stress.
So what will you do to add stress?
Well, at that point, he's got to have more sets on Monday. He's just got to have more sets. I think, 5 pounds on top of a 380 squat is like 1.2% increase in stress. And it's just negligible.
But a whole nother set of 5.
It's a whole bunch. I mean, he's not going to be able to get 4 sets of 5 at 385. He's probably not going to be able to do that.
Off a little bit.
So we're going to have to peel some of that off.
Right.
8, 9, 10%, and add a set.
Right.
And then try Friday again.
Where the goal is really probably the driving metric on Monday is tonnage.
Yep.
So you probably can't increase tonnage instantly from week 1 to week 2 there. Maybe you can. But within 2, 3, 4 weeks, like the tonnage is up significantly because you added an extra set.
Yeah, he gets 385 for 3 sets of 5 on Monday. He does his 315 as a deload Wednesday or a light day Wednesday. Comes in to get 390 on Friday. Goes 332.
Right.
Well, next week I would have him do something like 345, 350 for 4 sets of 5.
4 sets of 5.
He's going to go ahead and do. I might not move his 315 up. I might just leave it. And then I might go ahead and have him do 3 sets of 5 on Friday for now, 390. And if that ain't HLM by hook or crook, I don't know.
Yeah, so you actually go into that change, just FYI. So if that guy did on Monday 385 for 3 sets of 5, you can take 385 times 5 reps times 3 sets. That's a tonnage of 5775, so about 6,000 pounds of tonnage. If then instead you take him to 345 for 4 sets of 5, that's 7,000 pounds of tonnage. So you literally increase the tonnage on the very first change. And I think that's appropriate. That's an appropriate increase. So you're increasing the tonnage by increasing the volume and decreasing the intensity a little bit on Monday for that person who can't hit their very first set of 5 on the Friday day.
Doesn't happen very often.
Doesn't happen very often. Now, go back and say again, what do you then have them do on Friday? So we know you increase the volume on Monday.
Yep.
What do you do on Friday?
I think that we could reasonably have them try that 390 for 3x5.
Okay.
And
do you actually do that?
Nope.
What you're telling me here
Nope.
actually makes sense, but my question is, do you actually ever do that with a client?
Nope. I would probably have them do it for 2 5s or even 1 5.
Okay.
But either way, it looks like HLM. High stress,
so
low stress,
at
medium stress.
At the point that I start to have to make changes to volume, like where I'm increasing volume, on one day, I'm decreasing volume on the other day. Almost always, right? And remember, because volume alone, we got this question. If you go from 3 sets of 5 every day, Wednesday's a light day, to 4 sets of 5 on Monday and 2 sets of 5 on Friday, somebody asked the question, well, did work increase, did stress increase? Doesn't look like it to me. Looks like you just took a set off of Friday and put it on to Monday. You know what my answer to that is?
So?
It's actually that stress did increase. It's what was the stress? Did the volume stress increase on Monday? Yes. Did the intensity stress increase on Friday? Yes. Remember, everybody wants to assign a single variable as the only thing that can increase stress. That only works on novice linear progression. What is the variable that changes in novice linear progression? It's only intensity. Intensity goes up every session. After that, right, it starts to get a little tiny bit more complicated. If we start to think about the fact that this guy didn't get enough work in, and so we increase the work on Monday, and the quantifiable metric we can use that the work increased was tonnage, that the tonnage went up on Monday. But ultimately, the goal is to increase the weight on the bar. And that gets done on Friday. Then it actually doesn't matter if the volume comes down on Friday. It doesn't matter if the total volume, 3 sets of 5, 3 sets of 5, 3 sets of 5, so I end up with 9 sets of 5 in LP, or 4 sets of 5, 3 sets of 5, 2 sets of 5, and I still end up with 9 sets of. It's the same thing. It's still different stressors, because that volume stress on Monday is more stress on Monday than you were previously doing on Monday via the extra volume. And the intensity stressor on Friday is more stress than you had on Friday because the intensity went up. Now, the way your body responds and the time it takes to recover from that and the time it takes for fatigue to dissipate is different based on the stressor. Just like, oh, by the way, what if instead of doing 9 sets of 5 every week on 3 sessions, I did 9 sets of 5 in 2 sessions? What if I did 9 sets of 5 in 4 sessions? Would that not be a change in stress?
Mm-hmm.
So look, volume can't be the only variable that we use to quantify if stress goes up. Intensity cannot be the only variable that we use to quantify if stress went up. Frequency cannot be the only variable we use to quantify if stress went up. It is a combination of these things. We're constantly walking the line between too much work and too little work. That's what we're doing. We're trying to keep it between aligns. And what you're saying is, I believe we agree, if the person is able to hit their first set of 5 and not hit their following 2 sets of 5, then we need to be able to give them back off sets and keep driving up that top set of 5.
Yeah.
But if they're not able to hit their top set of 5, then that's not the same problem. That's a different problem, and it must be troubleshot differently. And what we'll often do then is we'll increase their amount of work on Monday, and it's not going to be, again, we use RPE from a communication tool here, not from a prescription tool, but that 4 sets of 5 on Monday isn't going to be an RPE 9.
No, shouldn't be.
It's going to be an RPE 7.
Yep, should be good.
Somewhere in there. And their Friday work, their 2 sets of 5, or their top set of 5 and a back off set or 2, that top set is going to be an RPE 9.
Shouldn't, yeah.
It is going to be really heavy.
It shouldn't be
and
super
it is
grindy,
going to be really
but
hard.
It shouldn't be super grindy, but they won't want any more.
Nope. And so that's the difference between that very first work set coming out of LP, especially when you've already given them a Wednesday light day. The first work set is the one that tells you the change that needs to be made. If they're able to complete all 5 reps, then we know, then they probably are going to need some, and then they can't complete their 2 more sets of 5, then we're going to give them permission to have back-offs. If they can't hit their first set of 5, we're going to make a change to the volume. That's what we do.
I'll often see people in-person clients. We don't get to do this with online coaching, but in person when you'll see them, you watch them do their warm-ups, and maybe they're going to do 5 sets of warm-ups, and you watch that 3rd warm-up set, and you're like, well, that didn't look great.
Yeah.
And then they do that 4th warm-up, and you're like, oh, no. It's just like super, super slow.
Yep.
There are some people that everything's slow. I'm kind of one of them.
Yeah.
But some of them, well, you'll watch them, and they're just, man, that last warm-up is really slow.
Yeah.
You probably got a recovery problem, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not. We know it's not heavy.
You'll call the audible if you're standing there in person. You'll call the audible often.
Yeah, we know it's not heavy. Hell, it's a warm up. It was probably their that weight was probably a top set 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
Well, if those warm ups are going slow, you're almost certainly dealing with a recovery thing. So we're just watching like what they're doing, watching the bar speed, watching how they're missing to try to figure out what's the problem. And there are really just 2 problems. Not enough work, haven't gotten over the old work. Those are really the only problems. And then we have to try to figure out where we can change things in order to either give them more work or let them rest a little bit.
Yeah, so, that's right.
Am I oversimplifying?
No, you're not, actually. I think that's, again, that understanding that sort of deeper next step of the SRA model of that fitness fatigue is saying that performance is the net effect of the effect of the stress has been applied to the body previously. So that stress that gets applied, there are positive effects that come out and there are negative effects that come out. The positive effects are the increase in fitness, strength, hypertrophy, whatever we call it, fitness. Negative effects are the fatigue, and we're trying to walk that line of the net effect between those two, the positives and the negatives. Yeah. So that's what we do with squat. So deadlift, I think we can talk about deadlift and do it pretty quick because it's actually really similar. The difference is just that the deadlift has less volume to start with.
It's more. Right? So the difference has become more. It's the same. It's just more pronounced. They're like, oh shit, it's glued to the floor.
Yeah, right. So they're doing I do the same thing, and I know you do too with deadlift. They're doing 1 set of 5. 3 times a week. It goes up every single time.
Yep.
I usually don't let them miss. I usually start to see it really start to grind, and then I go, okay, it's a Wednesday light day time. Do you do the same thing?
Yeah, I don't want them to miss deadlifts.
I don't want them to miss a deadlift.
I don't want to miss anything, but
no, same for me. But if somebody misses a press because they misgroove it, that's different, right? On a deadlift, it really starts to slow down. I'm like, okay, your back can't recover. You're doing the deadlift last. Your back is getting a lot of work on the squat. It's getting arched hard on the bench press, and it's still fairly well loaded on the press. Their back is just smoked, and it needs some recovery. And so I go to that Wednesday light day. Now, the Wednesday light day, you've got lots of options on how to do a Wednesday light deadlift day. You could actually just do a light deadlift day, right? You could do a 20% back off for a set of 5. Nothing wrong with that at all. Or even a 20 or 25% back off with 2 sets of 5. That would be a little more than a minimum effective dose. I think just doing a back off is the single minimum effective dose. You could theoretically, this is one of the times when I think doing an exercise selection change could potentially be appropriate. Certainly for a younger lifter, if they wanted to go to a power clean on Wednesday, that's a light pull. Mm-hmm. They could go to a barbell row. An older lifter could do a barbell row. Any of those things are appropriate, but you're going to do some sort of lighter pull on Wednesday, and then you're just going to keep doing your 1 set of 5 on Monday and Friday. Now, when they miss, now they come in, they hit their weight on, let's say they missed their weight on Monday this time. They go to Friday. Friday they deadlift 315 for a set of 5. It's pretty damn slow. You've got them programmed for 320 on Monday. They come in and they hit it for a triple, which is usually what they hit it for. They usually don't hit it for 4.
Right.
They usually hit it for 3. And if they're old, they might hit it for 0.
It's glued.
Matter of fact, I don't see deadlift sets missed at 1 rep or 2 reps or 4 reps very often. They either hit it for 3 and it's heavy and grindy enough that they don't even attempt it for a 4th, or they try to pull it and it doesn't break off the ground.
Right.
That happens all the time. Now, maybe there's a difference, but I don't think too much, right? What do you do if they hit their 315 for a set of 5 on Monday? I mean, they hit 315 for their set of 5 on Friday, and then they come in on Monday, put 320 on the bar, and they can't complete their set.
I think it's almost always a deadlift volume problem.
Me too.
In LP, we go up by 5 pounds. We might go up by 2.5 pounds for some of the lifts. And even for people who aren't terribly strong, the weight on the bar in the deadlift gets to be pretty big, pretty quick. 315, 320, 325, 385. And a 5-pound increase, particularly on a single set of 5, is not going to be that much of an increase in stress over your previous session. And then you talk about, if you take into account the fact that their plates may be plus or minus 1% anyway, it's a nothing. It's absolutely, the body can't tell the difference.
Yep.
And they almost always, you almost don't even need to even look at it. As long as the person gave it the full 5 seconds and you know what's going on in their mind as best as you can. We can never know 100%. It's almost always not enough volume in the deadlift.
Right.
Almost always.
So now this is a really interesting thing I just thought about. So we both agree that the problem there at the deadlift, once we move to a light pull day on Wednesday.
After you've moved to the light pull day on Wednesday.
After you've moved to the light pull on Wednesday, and you then miss on either Monday or Friday, is a volume problem. It's a not enough volume problem. And yet, mm-hmm. the goal is to continue to increase intensity.
Mm-hmm.
This is very important to understand this relationship. The problem is that there's not enough volume, but the goal is to be able to keep driving up intensity. Mm-hmm. So what do? Well, I think we do the same. I do the same thing we do on squat, and I increase the volume on Monday, and I go from 1 set of 5 to 2 sets of 5, and I probably back off 10 or 12%. Again, it depends on the demographic.
More.
Right? Or 20%.
15 to 20.
Perfectly. It depends on the demographic.
Yep.
Right? If it's Sybil, I don't have to back off 20% because a 4-pound decrease, 5-pound decrease is enough for her that she can pull that for 22 reps, and I had 5 pounds and it's stapled.
Yep.
So no, right. And I'm going to continue to drive up the intensity on Friday. And I can do that with 1 set of 5, or I'll do that sometimes with 2 sets of 3.
Yep.
I like both. Maybe I keep the 1 set of 5 as long as I can because I'm going to do the least amount of changes, and then I'll go to 2 sets of 3 when I can. And then when that 2 sets of 3, they hit their first set of 3 and they can't hit their second set of 3, I'll do a top set of 3 and I'll do some back offs. Exact same stuff I'm going to do on the squat. Overall, the volume on the deadlift is going to be lower across a week or a month or whatever. Then the volume is going to be less on the deadlift. But because it's so low and because it's so taxing, then we have to at some point recognize that we've got to increase the volume on the deadlift. We have to.
It's the same thing with the press and the bench press. With the deadlift, with a light set in the midweek, you have 2 heavy sets of 5 in the week. That's it.
Right. Yep.
With the press and the bench press, you average 4.5 heavy sets a week.
That's right. You train the bench and the bench press 1.5 times per week.
Yep.
You're going to train it 1.5 times. One week you're going to train it once. The next week you're going to train it twice. Next week you're going to train it once, and then twice. Right. So the first change I make, because it's a mindless, easy change, is I go from 3 sets of 5 to 5 sets of 3, because I can keep the exact same frequency, the exact same volume, and keep driving up the intensity. And I do it every time. I know you don't like it that much. It's okay, but I do it,
Matt, I do it, and I don't like it.
Yeah, I still think it's the right move to make, and it lasts a little while.
Yeah.
But then once it stops, I don't think it's even as much of a volume problem with the bench press and the press. I think it's a frequency problem.
Yes.
Which is a function of volume, right? You're just not doing them often enough. And that is often, for me, the impetus to move to a 4-day split.
Yeah.
When I moved to that 4-day split, now I'm not training them 1.5 times each per week. I'm training them twice per week, both. So I've increased the frequency, and by increasing the frequency, I'm increasing the volume. So I'm increasing the work. And that will, because I've already milked intensity as much as I can there alone. I've milked intensity alone. Then I have to start to add work. And I add work with the press and the bench press by increasing the frequency. By the way, quick note on frequency, because you were comparing the problem with the deadlift and the press and the bench press were all volume issues.
Or work issues, whatever.
Yeah, or work issues, right? I never, ever have somebody deadlift just once a week.
I tried it for a time. I tried it for a while, and it'll work for a little bit.
Not very long.
2 weeks, yeah. Because the problem there...
You know who would deadlift once a week for me if I trained him? Eric Lillibridge.
Okay.
Because he deadlifts 900 pounds. And I actually think it's going to take that long. Now, actually, even he might deadlift 405 for some speed reps.
Right.
Or something, like a second time a week. But he's really only going to have one good, hard work set of deadlifts and then maybe some back offs. But everybody else is just not enough. You can't train with 1 time a week frequency and make very good progress. Certainly not long term.
Because, and this is back to, the whole thing's about troubleshooting. Why doesn't that work, going to 1 set a week? Or we can flip it. Why would going to 1 set a week work? Going to 1 set a week would work for a while if the client had been having trouble recovering.
That's right.
But with the deadlift, that's not normally the case.
Right.
The novice linear progression that we use is squat heavy. There's no question about it. That's one of its virtues. It's a bug. It's a feature, not a bug. There are a lot of people that gripe about that. They're like, oh, there's not, they don't emphasize the bench enough. There's not enough pressing volume. They don't deadlift enough. And listen, we're both right. Like, you can't do everything all the fucking time for a new person. Sure. You end up with the strong lifts 5x5 problem if you have the higher volume and the higher frequency on all 4 of the lifts.
Right.
You end up
faster.
sacrificing the long-term progress.
That's right.
So, we prioritize. The squat is the king of lifts, and that's what we drive. And we do it for a time. And then when that's over, when we've gotten the good from that we can, because we're looking for these overall systemic effects that help the new lifter as much as possible, we believe that those are best found in the squat.
Yes.
So the squat tends to suffer due to recovery more than the other lifts would.
Yep.
The other lifts will tend to suffer because of volume or overall levels of work being done. Now you will find that the deadlift will be starting to suffer, and then when you start periodizing the squat, the deadlift kind of frees up again, and it'll start moving a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, because so many of the muscles are the same muscle groups, right? So they're, certainly... Same thing happens when we switch that 4-day split, and people aren't used to bench pressing and pressing on the same session. They're like, whoa, that second move's real hard.
Real hard.
It's real hard. It's real hard because you're using all the same muscle groups.
Yeah.
That's why when we switch that 4-day split, we can't usually do a 4-day split and run LP on the upper body lifts, because you can't unless you keep. If I do that, I always keep the press first. I press first and bench second. When I move into a 4-day split, that's when I often use intensity as the primary driver for the first lift, and volume is the primary driver for the second lift, and that allows me to get the work in that I need. So I'm gonna lift as heavy. So if I'm gonna press first, I'm gonna lift as heavy as I can on the press, and volume isn't as important. But they're not gonna do one set. I never do, like, I would never go do one set of 5 on press and be done with the press. Hold on. I would do one set of 5 on the press personally, because I'm only going to do one working set of anything that I do, period. But for all of my actual clients who are actually training, they're going to do a set of 5 on the press, and then they're going to do 2 more sets, right? Probably back offs or whatever, heavy. And then they're going to do like 3 sets of 5, 4 sets of 5, 5 sets of 5, something like that on the bench press, because the volume is the driver then for the bench press. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you're fatigued.
Yeah, that's another thing.
It doesn't matter if you're fatigued.
That's another thing to be holding in your mind as you're looking at these problems, is that the squat and the deadlift are supplemental to each other.
That's right.
And the bench press and the press are supplemental to each other.
That's right.
And what the one is doing in those supplemental pairs, what the one is doing affects the other.
That's right. And if you do it right, it's okay, because
it's great.
If really what we're trying to do when we say the word volume, what we're trying to do with volume is we're trying to get time under tension. We're trying to get fatigue. So if you press heavy first, and then your bench press is a little bit fatigued because it's already had some time under tension from the previous press, it doesn't matter. But if the goal is intensity, this is why you would not do volume first and intensity second. I wouldn't do bench press volume first and then press intensity, because the goal is to keep driving the weight on the bar up. And I can't drive the weight on the bar up if I'm already fatigued from the previous lift. But I can get volume in if I'm already fatigued from the previous lift. This is just logical. Yeah. It makes sense. So it works perfectly fine. So that's how we troubleshoot those 4.
Yes, you're looking for clues in the way that the programming is failing to figure out why it may have failed. And there are really only 2 reasons: not enough work, too much work. Those are really the only reasons that they can fail. Now,
and there are 4. By the way, you said this, and I almost said this earlier. There are actually 4 strategies there. We can increase work, or we can decrease work, or we can increase recovery or decrease recovery. Those are actually 4 different things, right? In order to stay on in that balance point. So I don't know what is the problem? If there are only 2, here's
either there's not been enough work done to continue to proceed, or the people haven't been able to recover from the work they have already
Correct.
done.
So there's too much fatigue.
And
one of those 2 things will lead to a net fitness fatigue effect that is negative, that's below the baseline.
Yeah, so we have to figure out how to either get them to do more work or allow them to rest. Now, overall, over any measured period, the amount of work done has to trend upwards, but it can't go up every darn session. It just can't do it.
And
I wish it could.
Hold on, we got to make a clarification there. When you say the amount of work must trend going up, you don't literally mean the total number of sets and reps.
No, I mean work.
Because if you do less sets and reps at a 35% higher weight, that can also be an increase in work or an increase in stress.
Yeah, work equals force times distance.
That's right. So we can increase work by increasing volume, intensity, tonnage, the combination of the 2, frequency, doing it more often. Like, all of those things can help increase that time under tension, the time it takes to perform the reps. Like, those are all things that can potentially increase the work, and over time, those things must increase. If I went back today to what I did my LP at on week 4, 15 years ago, and I squatted 205 for 3 sets of 5 on Monday, 210 for 3 sets of 5 on Wednesday, and 215 for 3 sets of 5 on Friday, that would be nothing.
You'd detrain.
I would completely detrain. But I don't do 9 sets of 5 on squats anymore. I do significantly less than 9 sets of 5 on squats. And the weight on the bar for me is continuing to go up. And right now I'm 40 years old and I can squat 500 pounds right now. It's not a problem. Right. And I go in, so the question is, what would a 500 pound squat, or what I did the other day, 385 plus 120 pounds of chain, something like that for reps. What would that have done to that guy on the 4th week of what would have buried him?
It would just broken you.
You can't do it. So we have to understand that we got to get out of this idea of thinking that the total amount of stress increases only by a single variable metric.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just look at volume like, hey, if volume didn't go up, then stress didn't go up. No, that's not necessarily true. Or if intensity didn't go up, then stress didn't go up. That's not necessarily true either, right? It's the combination of volume, intensity, frequency, etc., that must continually trend up. But the ultimate goal is that the weight on the bar goes up, as long as strength is the goal. And for most of our listeners, strength is the goal. Strength is intensity.
I don't know what else to say about that.
No, that's good. I think that's a good troubleshooting episode for. That's how you look into you've seen that show on Netflix called, I mean, I know you haven't seen it, but have you actually heard of the show called The Mind of a Chef?
Mm-mm.
There's a show called The Mind of a Chef. It was narrated by Anthony Bourdain. It had some of my favorite chefs. My favorite chef in the world, his name is Magnus Nielsen. He's a Swedish guy. And it looks into the mind of a chef, like when they create a dish, like their thought process. This is our thought process. This is the mind of Scott and Matt. This is the mind of a coach, of when our clients start to fail or the programming starts to halt or fail or have problems, why we make the changes we make, why you would either add intensity or add volume or decrease intensity or decrease volume or change frequency or whatever.
Well, Matt has gone to work with some folks there at his house. But this is another Barbell Logic podcast. I hope this was helpful. I want you to know that these steps, this look at troubleshooting, continues all the way through the client's training life. We don't just look at the problems at the end of LP and make decisions. We see these same problems occur all the time. Even if we have somebody that's in a 12-week block and we're looking for them to get a 5-rep PR probably somewhere in their 7th week of a 12-week block, if they're unable to do that, we start looking at how did they miss it and what could be potentially going on. Maybe they have more fatigue in the middle of that block than we wanted them to have. Perhaps the stress hadn't been great enough in the accumulation phase of that block for them to transmute and get that 5. So these concepts hold no matter where they are in their training development and their athletic lifespan. There's another show. If you got any questions about it, send them to questions@barbell-logic.com. Follow me on Instagram. I'm Scott_Silverstrength, and follow Reynolds. He's at Reynolds Strong. And you can follow us. We are at Barbell Logic there. And never, ever forget to go subscribe to the Friday Fives newsletter. We try to make that worth your while. Hopefully that'll be something that you look forward to every Friday, is to get the Friday Fives newsletter and incorporate that into your bathroom reading schedule. Don't act like you don't have one. Do you remember before we had these cell phones and you would read like anything that was in the bathroom, like the shampoo bottle label or like the Dow bathroom cleaner, scrubbing bubbles can label while you're sitting on the toilet? We all used to do that. Well, we want the Friday Fives to be that for you. So go do that. You can go to barbelllogic.com and sign up for that. And we'll talk to you in just a few days.